Hello, vinyl community. This is my second attempt at this video. On the previous video, I said I hoped it wouldn't be a long video. I made it. I must have had it on time lapse. So I went and watched it. It was like 33 seconds long. It was going. Oh well. Practice makes perfect. I think I've finally finished up watching most of the 2019 video tag, which I enjoyed. Every video I watched was interesting. I loved it. And I always wondered who wrote these questions. You know, like last year and the year before. It's like, do they come from God or something on a stone tablet or... Well, I think actually, I may be wrong, but I think Andrew from Tales from the Crate wrote these questions. And these were really good questions, so I liked it a lot. Okay, before I get into my main video, the last month, I think I know I went way beyond budget on my record buying. Of course, it was holidays, you know, you buy presents and stuff like that. So I bought myself many vinyl presents. Oh well, it's only money. So I told myself I would not buy any more until February 1st. What is today? 20th or 21st? 9-10 days. No way am I going to make it. In fact, I'll probably go online tonight and order some. The hell with it, you know. Speaking of money, I thought of this the other day. A lot of people, including myself, we always moan about the price of new vinyl records and reissues, you know. I would say probably a normal price, average price maybe, would be 25 bucks, more or less, today. And then I thought about when I started buying records back in '69. That was, what, 50 years? Is that right? 50 years ago. Anyhow, back then, I remember albums sold for typically two price points, more or less, $3.99 and $4.99, and there may be some right in the middle. So you're talking like $4 or $5. Top level would be $5. That was 50 years ago. Well, today they are, say, 25 bucks. I would say with our cost of living, we're getting a good deal, you know. Adjusted for inflation, those albums probably should be at least 35, you know, normally. So, and we have got used in the last 20 years to either free music or cheap music. Napster. And then iTunes, 99 cents a song. So you didn't have to buy the whole album. Maybe buy 2 or 3 songs. It's only got, you know, $2 or $3. Then streaming nowadays, for what, 10 bucks? I don't stream, but I have Sirius Radio, which is basically I'm streaming that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is don't feel guilty for buying these new records for 25 bucks a pop. Don't feel guilty. That's what I tell myself. But I thought I'd bring that up. Anyhow, I am making this video because on the 2019 tag, one of the questions was what holes are you looking to fill in your catalog? And I said one of my answers was the Beatles. Always have been and will be a Beatles fanatic. I used to have, when I was younger, growing up, I think I had like 9 original Beatles albums. Well, through the years, I got rid of those, or most of them. But I kept one for whatever reason. And this was actually the second album I ever bought in my life. This is, of course, Meet the Beatles. Now, this particular pressing, I think I checked on Discogs or something, because the album came out in '64, early '64. This is a '66 pressing on the original Capitol Rainbow label. So the next pressing they made of this album, it was on another label. I'm not sure. I think a different colored Capitol, either the lime or the orange. I don't think it went to an apple then, but okay. And like I said, I'm trying to rebuild my record collection, so I don't have that many originals left. So I'm buying new reissued ones. Now this one, I think I bought, I'm thinking in the early 80s. And I don't know if I bought it used or not. The White Album. The cover is really marked up. Stains. Water stain, or if I had it, it was probably a beer stain when I was younger. So, still sounds very good. I listened to this a couple months ago. I was debating whether to buy the remastered White Album with the Escher demos. And I thought, well, I'll just listen to my version, see how it sounds. Sounds pretty good. So, I think I'm going to pass on the, it'd be nice to have the demos, but I can buy another Beatles album with a price difference. This one I got a few months ago. It is in stereo. I was looking for the mono, but I couldn't find it. Please, please me. Of course, and all these reissues, of course, they are the British versions, which I much prefer to the American releases. Okay, this next album, I just got this a couple weeks ago, and I never had this album. Of course, this is the UK version. Help! Has 14 Beatles songs on it. I never had, and it is in stereo, I never had this when I was younger. Why did I not have it? I was a Beatles nut. Well, the answer is it's a soundtrack album in America, the American version. As was A Hard Day's Night. They were soundtrack albums. So you only had one side of Beatles songs. The other half of the album were soundtrack and instrumentals from the movie. So I wasn't about to pay the entire cost of a Beatles album for only half the product. And I still wouldn't, I don't think, except just for collector's sake to get those American versions. But Help sounds great. I love it. This I got a few months ago. Like I said, I'm rebuilding my Beatles. Rubber Soul. English version, of course. This is a mono pressing. I love the tip-on. album cover. I never did have this American album, the American release of this, which this is far superior to the American version, because a lot of these songs were split up on other albums. It's really hard to keep track of some of that stuff. So I'm glad they went with the British releases. Okay, this one I did get a few months ago also. I had it when I was younger. It is Magical Mystery Tour. It's got the booklet and everything. So, but I will show you, if you're not familiar, the label. This is the Capital Rainbow label. So on these reissues, this is one of the rare albums where they use the American version versus the British version. Because the British version was an EP containing only the songs from the TV special Magical Mystery Tour, whereas this includes singles from the previous year. Penny Lane, Strawberry Fields, Hello Goodbye, All You Need Is Love, stuff like that. So it's a really good album. This next album I bought, I think early last year. Bought it down in Louisville. I bought this when it came out. I think when it came out, it was actually called The Beatles Again. This pressing says Hey Jude. Supposedly, see that front cover? Supposedly, this was supposed to be the front cover, but somebody got it screwed up and switched them around. That's the story. I don't know. This was supposed to be on the back cover. Which, I think, yeah, I think I see that. Like I said, this was released in, it was released between Abbey Road and Let It Be. So this would actually be the first, it would be the first kind of like compilation album, maybe, or big hits, not really the greatest hits, but more of a compilation album that the Beatles put out. And this was put out when the Beatles still existed as a group. They were still recording. So, but basically this has all the songs on this album, which include Hey Jude and Revolution, Ballad John Yoko, etc. These songs were never released on a Capitol or Apple record in the United States, an album. It does include I Should Have Known Better and Can't Buy Me Love, which they were on the Hard Day's Night album in the United States, but that was a United Artists album. So anyhow, great sounding album. Good job of whatever they did back then. They probably didn't do too much remastering or anything, but sounds really good. Now the last album I have to show, I just got this a few days ago. I bought this when it first came out. It's John Lennon, Plastic Ono Band. Now when this came out, I'm thinking probably 1970, I think. When this, and there's no track listing on the front or rear. And Instant Karma had been released earlier of this year, just a 45, and I always loved that song. So I assumed, and I love the Beatles, I really love John Lennon, so I assumed Instant Karma would be on this album, which it is not. It would have been nice to have it on there, because I'm not sure if it's the same band or, well, probably not. But anyhow, the day this was released, Apple released another album. And the other album looked almost exactly like this. It was by Yoko. On the rear, exact same. Instead of a young John Lennon, it had a photo of a young Yoko Ono. And on the front, unless you really noticed, I think here Yoko is leaning against the tree and John's laying back between her legs. Now I believe on the Yoko album, I think their positions are reversed. But if you were to go by these albums side by side and not pay that much attention, because I'm sure the photos were taken probably less than 30 seconds after each other, save exposure and all this, you would not know the difference. And even the back, if you can see that texture, well, that was used on both albums. But you had Yoko, a young Yoko here. Anyhow, this has always been one of my, I love this album. I always have loved it. Kind of a minimalist, pretty much a three-piece group on most of this, although Lennon will make just one or two overdubs. Of course, his voice will be double-tracked a lot of times, but I'm glad I repurchased this. So anyhow, I'm hoping I had my settings on the camera correct this time. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I don't know. Well, I guess I'll see you later. So take care.